The masterclass on implementing large eGov projects and learnings from Bhumi and Kutumba by Mr. Rajeev Chawla has been interesting and informative. Now we have a question and answer round. Our first question is: how are the respective digital certificates and documents being verified?
I mean, this question is relevant, but not relevant in the context of Kutumba. In Kutumba, you don't even take any certificate. The data is there. I mean, you issue a certificate and you want to verify a certificate. Why do you issue a certificate? You have the data. So why do you issue an income certificate if you are the consumer yourself in the government? So therefore, while I'll answer your question, I must say in Kutumba, this question is irrelevant because we don't need any papers. But of course, the question is important. If I give you an education certificate and you go to Punjab, how do you verify? That question still remains relevant. Now, what these people have done, they have done two things. One is that Karnataka brought out the rules for digital certificates in the year 2006, before METI copied it. Mr. Rao used to be additional secretary at that time, one from Surat. So what they do is, they brought QR code in 2005. You should read about it. It was called two-dimensional barcode at that time, where you actually put the data by digitally signing the data. And you gave a software through which the two-dimensional barcode can be read. So the answer to your question is the same. You digitally sign and give the data, and that data can be checked. But of course, many people don't do this. They connect through API to the system and then take the data, whatever is required.
How did you meet the technical requirements for these projects? Also, how did the processes continue in case of the transfer of the workforce?
So I, first of all, thanks to Abhishek. Abhishek, I am thankful to you. SCMT resources who are there and the NIC team. These two people actually did. NIC, of course, only wrote the code, and also SCMT. The documents were all written by people like us at that time. Of course, we don't write the function. We write vaguely the functional requirement document. The question is, documentation is there, great detailed documentation. In fact, Niti Aayog has also written a lot on Kutumba. I can share that. But if you ask me what happens if you get transferred, I don't really know. One, I think in Karnataka, the culture has come. I don't know about other states. In Karnataka, culture has come. So my successor, after I retired, a brilliant officer, has continued. And then, of course, there is such a critical mass that you connect Bhumi and Kutumba to so many systems that if you close it, there would be a huge problem. I can't answer more than this, but the more and more you are connected to other systems, your system would then become indispensable. I can discuss offline if there are many more questions on this point as to how do you ensure continuation of the project itself.
Now that various states are developing their own versions of social registries, how do we develop one at the national level? Will it be a de novo project, or will we have to settle for a system that has minimum standards common to all state-level social registries?
So I really don't know why you even talking about a national project. You need registry of citizens with their attributes. That system can happen at the state level. Every state would own. You use that data, right? Why do you need a national system for services which are delivered at the state level? So I beg to differ. We have been saying that these systems should be state systems, but they should be developed on some simple standards so that when Government of India wants to collate some data, it should be possible. So kindly understand, you want to know about Rajeev Chawla. Rajeev Chawla lives in a state. He doesn't live in a center. So you pick up his data from there. You pick up his data from here. He cannot live in two states at the same time. He can have data from two states. For example, you can have land in two states. That's perfectly okay. And I would dig out that data from the farmer registry if he has land in two states. So therefore, I submit to you and we can discuss this. And I think latest, this is the thinking of the Government of India also, that every state should develop a registry. And of course, by connecting to central systems also, like Narega, E-Shrama. And then of course, all central and state systems can use those registries.
Since the philosophy of Aadhaar Act is against profiling and social registries can be used for profiling, does the project of social registries face a legal hurdle?
I'm just asking you, kindly go and read Aadhaar. Where does it say profiling? Does Aadhaar use the word profiling? I don't know who told you. So this is I think I think there's some problem in understanding this. There's nowhere that it talks about profiling. It doesn't talk. In fact, 2022 circular, and I would share it in the group. It actually talks about sharing data amongst departments. It talks about sharing data amongst departments. So therefore, kindly understand that it is not against profiling. At the max, I can say that Aadhaar is silent on profiling. And if it is silent on profiling, I don't know, you call it profiling, I don't call it profiling. I am not wanting to know where you went by aircraft. I don't want to know what you are purchasing. I only say that your caste is this, your income is this, so that I can help you.
In case a state of UT wants to implement Kutumb, what approach would you suggest?
Prakash, all I'll say, Prakash, is that you have to connect databases and then you should have good policies. I don't really think that there is any technology involved in this. You have to connect databases, you have to find common identifiers and connect. But of course, I am sure that Abhishek and his team of SCMT and the Secretary Governors of Karnataka would be very happy, as he has been helping various states who visit Kutumba. But if you really ask me, there is no rocket science, there is nothing in it. It's just collection of data. And more than that, I think on the usage side, you will have to have policies, etc. But Kutumba itself, evolving Kutumba itself, is just collection of data.
We are still working in silos. Interoperability is the need of the hour. Output-outcome framework needs to be implemented and data sharing made fully mandatory. These need to be addressed.
So two things he raised. Number one, he says that you need to share data. And number two is interoperability. Interoperability I showed in the last slide. But I think this mentality of sharing data, is so difficult, Prakash. It's so difficult. I'll not name ministries. But then people just don't want to give connectivity. Unlike e-Shrama, for example, who feel proud of sharing data. So I think Abhishek and others will have to put a danda and see that all the ministries give data through APIs to the consumers. Consumers as in state governments and other departments. But yes, interoperability, MDDS standards will have to be followed. So I would be very happy to talk separately to people who want to listen on AgriStack as to how is this AgriStack going to be a system which would be built like an API where you will have complete standards and standards listed the way Health Mission is doing, for example, and how land record systems are getting reformed. And I am happy about it. Prakash spoke about it, that how do you make farmer registry if land records are of different types? And I can talk separately about it.
The concept of family is dynamic and changing. So how do you take into account this particular fact in Kutumb?
Prakash, it's a very, very exciting question. If you talk about PM Kisan, it is husband, wife, and minor children. In some other, it may be husband, wife, and unmarried daughters and minor children. Now, minor sons. So the answer to your question is that it has to be dynamically created. You should have enough. For example, in Kutumba, and I must confess, it is not built still, they have to work on this, that you should know father Aadhaar of everybody. Now and mother Aadhaar of every person. That means you can dynamically find out, depending upon the definition, as to what is a family. So actually it should be called, instead of family database, it should be called citizens database. And family gets created dynamically depending upon the scheme definition. But then you need enough information to connect different people and make dynamic family. We can talk about it. It's an involved subject. I would be very happy to help anybody if anybody wants to know more on it.
What is the most critical challenge that you faced in the project Kutumb?
The most critical challenge here was to share the data. That in the beginning, they said, we cannot share data because there is Aadhaar. And then we got a UIDI order saying that you can actually merge and make MIS reports. I mean, what is MIS is a nebulous word, by using hash of Aadhaar. So once I got that with my batchmate being there as CEO, UIDI, Pankaj, we got that in clarification that on the basis of hash of Aadhaar, you can share data. I think we were then able to get data from all the departments electronically and merge them. The second biggest problem was mindset. Moving to entitlement-based system, which has still not happened. It's only selectively for some schemes.
Hope you enjoyed this masterclass and thank you for watching. Don't forget to tune into our next one.